Mixed Combat Radio. I'm here today with two heavy hitters within TBV, Santiago and JP from Long Beach. What is up, guys?
All is well, my friend. How are you?
Good, man. Good. Santiago, how are you, brother?
Pretty good. Just here reading up on some fun facts about the Prince of Saiyans Vegeta.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is, but it's okay. It's okay, Santiago. I still love you. Uh, let's get right into it, because JP here, who's a sort of freelance writer within boxing, you can follow him at Family First. I think there might be an underscore in there on Twitter, by the way. And Jamel Payton, he's written for TBV. You can check up on his articles on our website. But he came to me and Santiago and said, let's do a show about a bunch of topics. So I have the list, and we're going to go through them one by one. We're going to start with probably the two biggest names everyone probably going to be talking about. Mainly just because me and Santiago have already sort of talked about this before. So me and Santiago are going to briefly talk about Chavez Jr. versus Canelo potentially happening in May on Cinco de Mayo weekend in Texas, and just the overall rumor and chatters about it. So me and I'm gonna go first, Santiago, and then JP. You can talk as long as you want about it because you haven't spoken your piece on it yet. But I think this fight is most likely gonna happen over the Billy Joe Saunders fight, mainly because the money factor. I think it's a fight that both sides have already said they agree upon the weight. So 165 is both agreed upon. The money seems like it's probably going to be agreed upon with a $6 million offer plus pay-per-view upside. So if this fight does anywhere between 600,000 pay-per-views to 800,000, they're going to walk. Chavez Jr. is going to walk away with good money, and obviously Canelo, the A side, is going to be making good money. So I think this fight's perfect. Santiago, what are your thoughts about it?
Now, as we discussed before, too, this is purely a money fight. You've got Canelo, whose standing in Mexico was improved following the stupid shit that happened with Chavez Jr. Chavez Jr. clearly still carries his father's name, which is something that a lot of the Chavez fans still hold on to him. And given how rabid their respective fan bases are, I would not be surprised if, when the fight is made, and in Texas no less, that it does break Julio Cesar Chavez Sr.'s record attendance of 7,000 people at the Alamodome.
70,000 people. But, yeah, so JP, what do you think about it, man?
I hate the fight for two reasons. One, it's
Wait,
just purely.
Sorry, did you hate the fight? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I hate it. I absolutely hate it for two reasons. One, it's just purely a cash grab, and two, at this point of Canelo's career, his trajectory should be going up every fight, or at least an opponent that we see as somewhat dangerous or credible at least. But this is like not even a lateral move. I don't know if it's a move at all, but it's just a pure cash grab. He's going up to 165. There's so many contradictions with him having a catch weight with this guy at 165. I hate the fight. I want to ask you guys, so how do we feel about Canelo after this? Because me as a fan, I like Canelo. And I kind of feel like this is kind of a slap in the face. You know what I mean? I don't know. How do you guys feel?
Santiago, do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Let me go first on this one, because I don't like Canelo personally. I think Canelo has what it takes to be, that star that, he can be. And when he was coming back from losing the Mayweather, the Angulo fight, the Lara fight, he was proving to himself, I will take on, the fights that people want me to do. Arislani Lara upstaged him. He literally asked his people, you guys want this fight? And he fucking made the fight. And I'm like, I respect you for that. But once he took the Amir Khan fight and did the whole shit that happened after that, promotional issues aside or whatnot, I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't care for you at this point, So it's like, yeah, I agree with you, JP. This is just another slap in the face for us, and most Canelo fans are just really just there for him. They don't really care about anything else at that point.
Okay, I'm gonna play contrarian, just for the sake of it. But is Chavez Jr. better or worse than Billy Joe Saunders, skill wise?
Worse.
Worse. Okay, Santiago.
What was the question again?
Who's worse in your opinion, Billy Joe Saunders or Chavez Jr.? Like just as a boxer.
As a boxer,
Yes, including like all things power. Not necessarily like who's the better like quote unquote boxer. Like not using
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
exact term, but just who's a better guy, who's a better fighter.
Uh, Honestly, I would have to say Chavez Jr., but his lack of discipline and almost non-existent desire to train and improve himself is what makes him worse than Billy Joe Saunders.
I'll put
Chavez's biggest advantage he's gotten in life is his DNA. His durability that he's gotten from his father, he has also. That's the best thing he has going for him. I'm not sure that I've ever seen anything that that's a remnant of skill like a good jab or footwork. He was just more durable and bigger than everyone he fought. And when he started fighting guys close to his size, we all know what happened. He started getting dogged. So I don't know, man. I'm just not. This is. I don't know if this is worse than the James Kirkland fiasco with Canelo,
Ooh, okay.
but this is going to be. It's along that line.
I'll put it this way, and I'll finish it here because I tend to agree with you guys honestly that this fight's shit. There's no point in this fight, but I think that Canelo beats Billy Joe Saunders in an easier manner than he does beat Chavez Jr. Not necessarily based on skill. I just think there's the size factor, the durability factor, like you state, JP. But I don't know. Again, whatever we get is shit. We get Canelo versus Billy Joe Saunders in May, or we get Canelo versus Chavez Jr. So the fans are in a predicament where no matter what we get is the fight we don't want, because the fight we actually want is Triple G and Canelo. That's the fight we want. Or Triple G fighting a Charlo and defending his belt. But he's not defending his belt. He's gonna move up, and that's the whole point. And that even makes the whole Liam Smith expenditure that much more fruitless and pointless. Because why even go back to 154 when he was coming back up anyway? So again, I'm not trying to defend Canelo here, but all I'm saying is whatever we get is shit. So I'm over it.
Hey, my worst nightmare is that this shit is going to lead to a Cotto Canelo 2.
Ooh.
That's my biggest fear. And I think that's where we're headed. And I don't want to see that shit again, man, because it'll be the same thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because like there was a headline, I forget on what website, that even talked about that fight being like in September or something like that. And I was like, please, for the love of God, for every boxing god out there, I am praying to you. Please do not let that happen. Because I think Cotto, just like a Marquez, just like a Brandon Rios, a Victor Ortiz, all these guys, they're on the senior tour now. They should not be fighting the young guys, in my opinion. Their time is done.
Yeah.
Move on.
Absolutely. Who's Cotto got for his next fight?
James Kirkland.
Oh my God.
Hey, hold on.
Yeah, I think this is
JP. That fight's on pay-per-view, and the co-main event is Guillermo Rigondeaux.
Oh my goodness. What the? That is just an atrocious card. And
no casuals going to buy
I don't know. Well, see, I don't know if any hardcores are going to buy either. I think we overestimate Cotto's star power in that sense of bringing in pay-per-views. What has he brought in on pay-per-views historically?
Let me see if I still have the numbers up.
That's something we'll have to fact check. We'll have to fact check that. But I just think they greatly overestimate how much the Puerto Rican fan base is going to come out and buy those $50 and $60 pay-per-views. And who's ever at the head of Rock Nation negotiations and signing contracts, he's both. He's both terrible and awesome. To fighters, to Cotto, he's awesome. But to that company, he is the worst.
Okay, JP, you want to hear his pay-per-view buy rates?
Let me hear it.
So Cotto versus Zab Judah back in 2007, 225,000 buys. Cotto versus Mosley, 400,000. Cotto versus Margarito number 1, 450,000. Pacquiao versus Cotto, obviously it was a big one, 1,250,000. Cotto versus Mayorga, 250,000. Cotto versus Margarito 2, 600,000. Mayweather versus Cotto, 1.5 million pay-per-view buys. Cotto versus Martinez, 350, and Cotto versus Alvarez, 900,000. So his
Wow.
bottom is 225, and I think this will do
And
worse.
that's what,
This will do worse than that, right? Like that's my personal opinion.
yeah, right around there for sure. It's gonna bomb. And some of those names that you named, they were pretty good fighters with well-known names,
All those
and
guys are
they still
potentially
did
Hall
the
of Famers,
300.
right?
Yeah. So yeah, this thing's gonna bomb.
Rock Nation, what are they thinking? Like, I know this is not obviously on the topic that we have here, but like, did Rock Nation completely just have no forethought about the boxing industry with the contracts they gave to Miguel Cotto, Andre Ward, and there was one other guy I forget. Oh, Guillermo Rigondeaux. They gave Rigondeaux a contract. They gave 3 guys a contract that can't sell a fucking wet paper bag.
Yeah, I think they call them Rock Nation because they're smoking crack, man. Because they're obviously, I don't know, maybe they're letting Jay-Z do the negotiations too.
Nah,
I
Jay
thought he
Z's
was
not doing
just
shit with
like
this. Come on, Jay Z's never been at the fights. He wasn't even at Andre Ward's
oh,
comeback, which was on BET. He wasn't even in the attendance, I believe, right?
I don't think so, man.
Yeah.
Thing's gonna bomb. It's gonna be atrocious.
And he gets guaranteed $15 million, Cotto, plus pay-per-view.
My God, I don't know. I don't see. I don't understand any logical business sense in that. I can't even fathom what they were thinking to for that to be a base number for a Cotto fight. Does he get any pay-per-view incentives?
Sorry, what was that?
Does he get any like pay-per-view incentives if
Yes.
it clears a number?
Yes.
Oh wow. Oh, anyway, man, let's talk about something else because this is making me sad.
Well, let's talk about the 2 epic fights in March, which I think are like 2 weeks apart. Thurman versus Garcia, which is gonna be announced soon to be at the Barclays. I think they're waiting after the new year to announce it. For what, I have no idea, but that's what I heard. And Triple G and Jacobs will be March 18th at Madison Square Garden. These are 2 fights that are back-to-back. They're arguably 2 top 5 guys in the division. You can make an argument for maybe 1 and 2, and I wouldn't like be shocked. I wouldn't like laugh at you. So, JP, what do you think about Thurman and Garcia? And I know I'm going there. I'm pretty sure Santiago's going there. And I'm pretty sure Info Joe and Fern are going there. You're the only one not going there. So, I mean, like, what are your thoughts about it?
Oh man, I've filled my married man quota of being able to hang out with the fellas. So unless I can get me and wifey out of there, I'm gonna be watching at the house. But I'm wondering, so which fight is better, Triple G Jacobs or Thurman Garcia? In my opinion, I have Thurman Garcia being the better competitive fight, while Triple G Jacobs being the better fight as far as entertainment value in a say a better fight to be at. I think the atmosphere there will be better, but I think the atmosphere of Thurman Garcia at Barclays will be nice too, and I think that will be the fight that people will label as the high speed chess match as we tend to do, but I think Triple G Jacobs has the possibilities to be a really explosive fight. But I'm really excited for both, and that's starting off the year 2017 really well.
Now, Santiago, out of the 2 fights, which one do you think is a better overall fight?
Well, I'm probably of the same. I'm probably the same mindset as most that Garcia Thurman is the more competitive fight simply because these two guys are in their prime in their primes right now. Garcia has proven himself at junior welterweight. Thurman seems to have the goods at welterweight, and really this is going to be an interesting fight because in Thurman, Garcia will be facing a genuine 147 pounder and can stake his case as one of the best 147 pounders in the division if he beats Thurman. I'm a Thurman fan, and I'm going for Thurman, but I do think this is going to be a good fight.
Now, Thurman Garcia has no network yet. I am predicting it is going to be on CBS. Mainly because, one, CBS has a relation with Showtime, and all the other major Al Heyman fights in the new year, in the first, 3 or 4 month period, are on Showtime. So he needs at least one big fight on major cable television. So naturally, CBS would be that channel. But I think it's going to be interesting because we have both fights that are against, I think, the biggest threat against the A side at the moment. I think Thurman's the A side, and you may disagree, but I'm talking mainly about skill right now. Thurman's the A side and Triple G is the A side. And within the division themselves at this point, I think Garcia and Jacobs are the biggest threat. Maybe Earl Spence. You can make an argument for Canelo, but I don't think Canelo's a 160 guy at the moment, and Spence hasn't really proven himself against the very top yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how a fight on cable primetime television does and how that affects the industry and the sport and fans compared to a fight that's hidden behind a $60 or $70 pay channel, because that's what pay-per-view is. It's going to be HBO pay-per-view. I have no idea what they're going to stack that card with, especially with Al Heyman having influence in the card. So it's just going to be interesting to juxtapose them about, afterwards. I think, obviously, style-wise, on paper, Thurman Garcia is the better fight. They're both, I think, more talented overall than Triple G and Jacobs. And again, I think most of us tend to agree that Triple G beats Jacobs rather handily, while Thurman Garcia, it could be a fight of the year sort of fight similar to Thurman and Porter. But do you guys have any more comments on Chavez, Canelo, Thurman Garcia, or Triple G and Jacobs?
Well, I have a question. I want someone to convince me that Jacobs is good because to me he's still a bit of an anomaly. Because the last two fights we've seen, was it Mora and Quillen, they were both like really strange fights where you don't get to see him really have to put in any work. I mean, it was hard. I mean, in the second Mora fight, I mean, you could see a few things, a few I guess tactical things he's doing in the ring. But other than that, the Quillen fight ended in a blink of an eye, which we didn't expect. I'm not sure how good Jacob is. So can you convince me? Can you tell me why I should think he's good?
Santiago, do you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I'll go first. Now, I'm not sure I can convince you. I'm sure Matt will have a better chance of doing that, but I do agree with you that right now Danny Jacobs is an enigma to say the least, because the Peter Quillen fight did end in one round. That doesn't really tell us much about what he can and can't do. And the Mora fight was very, very, very awkward. So it was more of an awkward thing to do than it was to fight. But I do believe that Jacobs has his chance here against Triple G to showcase that he can be one of the best at 160, whether or not he wins the fight. If he gets iced the same way he iced, Peter Quillen, then that's all she wrote for Danny Jacobs. But if he actually makes it a competitive fight, even in a losing effort, I think his stock still rises in the end.
Now, now, I'm not the biggest Daniel Jacobs fan. I think you know that, JP, and I think you know that, Santiago. I tend to think that Triple G will probably finish him within 3 rounds if he pushes the pace. Now, Jacobs is good in everything but his durability. Like in juxtaposing it with Chavez Jr., who we talked about earlier. You mentioned how like he has that durability, he has that genetic factor, JP, about how he can just take punishment, and that has led him to a lot of his victories, not his overall skill. I think Jacobs is a little more of the flip side. He has no durability, but he has decent and above average skill in almost everything he does. He does tend to be a little more flat-footed than movers, than a Terrence Crawford, for example, or a Keith Thurman, or even like a Lomachenko. But I think he has really good sense of distance and range, and he gets that sense of distance at a very fast rate, which is a natural quality you have. That's a very hard skill to learn. And then I also think he obviously has insane one-punch knockout power. While I think guys like Triple G is more of a guy that can hurt you with your shots, I think I think Daniel Jacobs is the type of guy to knock you out cold. And I think if he lands a clean uppercut or a clean right straight like a Kell Brook did, have we seen Triple G take shots like that? I know people have made arguments of Curtis Stevens having that power, but Curtis Stevens' accuracy is nowhere near the level of the Jacobs, and I think Jacobs.
So wait, are you implying that Jacobs has more power than Triple G?
I think he has better one-punch knockout power than Triple G.
So is that to say that's saying he has better? Okay, one punch. That I don't. Now that's saying something, because I don't know if I can go with that.
But
I don't know if I agree with that.
But Triple G has a chin from fucking Wolverine titanium adamantium or some shit. Okay, so that's why I don't think Jacobs' power is going to equal anything in this fight. Because maybe he's going to rock Triple G, and I probably predict that just because I think Triple G is semi-hittable. But Triple G's chin, I think, is a Hall of Fame worthy sort of chin. That's a Marvin Hagler sort of chin. That's a Roberto Duran sort of chin. So that's a Rocky Marciano sort of chin. That's the type of chin that you just think like, wow, man, he can take everything. So that's why I'm favoring him, because I think Triple G has better skills in certain aspects over Jacobs, and I just think style-wise, this is an awful fight for Jacobs. That's why he loses it. Not due to the fact that Jacobs isn't the number 2 middleweight in the world, because he is.
Yeah, and to add to that quickly, it's like, we don't see Triple G losing to a come-forward fighter. We always think that Triple G, his kryptonite will be a guy who has great footwork, be able to move around the ring, make Triple G have to shuffle his feet. That's not what I've seen recently in Danny Jacobs. I mean, Danny Jacobs is just stalking guys down. And so what I hate when I see a fighter develop one style and then they come into a fight against another fighter and they just have this whole complete different style, it rarely works. Every now and again you see a guy pull it off, but most of the time it ends up like Andre Ward when he did the shoulder roll and he got his face busted up trying to do something that he's not used to doing. And I don't know if Jacobs is going to come out here, I assume, and try to use the jab and be a finesse-type fighter, the slick, quote-unquote, slick black fighter and all that. And I just don't think that's his style, and it's not going to work for him.
And I agree with you on that note too, JP. Like, really, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the style that he tries to adopt against a Triple G, the same way that Amir Khan decided to be the come-forward fighter. Not Amir Khan. Chris Algieri tried to be the come-forward fighter against Amir Khan. But unless he's refined it the way and Chris Algieri refined his outside fighting, I don't see it working for him at all. You're going to see that ability to cut off the ring, those body shots take their toll against Danny Jacobs if he tries.
I think the Chris Algieri example is a good example of a guy that was able to switch styles, but his footwork was incredible either way. Daniel Jacobs doesn't have that footwork. Like Daniel Jacobs' footwork and his lack of solid head movement is his ultimate flaw. It may not even be his bad
Well,
chin, but I think he's always in position to get hit by a clean shot, unfortunately.
well, no one's gonna beat Triple G unless you're durable. Unless you somehow ice him out, like you mentioned, that Wolverine chin, you're gonna kind of go through hell. It's like fighting Provodnikov. Well, before the last Provodnikov we seen, but you're fucking going to the hospital 9 times out of 10 in a victory. So, if durability is your weakness, you ain't beating Triple G. No
Exactly.
way.
Exactly. And I think
Agree.
I think we're all in agreement about how this fight goes. You know what I mean? That's why we obviously assume Thurman and Garcia is the better fight, right?
For sure.
I don't think it's the more exciting. I think it's the more competitive.
Interesting. Now, do you need a knockout? I think you're saying that maybe because you predict maybe like like both Jacobs and Triple G coming forward, throwing heavy shots, and then Jacobs obviously getting knocked out in impressive fashion, and in a short and exciting fight, while Thurman Garcia presents more of a 12-round potential war, but maybe more of a technical battle. So is that the reason why
Yeah,
you think one's more exciting than the other?
yeah. The potential for the flash knockout is always great, and that this fight with Jacobs has that potential. And like I said, the Thurman Garcia fight is going to be one of those where we bring out the old high speed chess match label. And those are for the hardcores, and we'll love it because it's like, oh, did you see how he set up that right hand and all that shit will be going on. But Thurman Jacobs, there's going to be some blows. There's going to be some leather flying,
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
somebody's getting hurt. Somebody's getting hurt. In the Thurman Garcia fight, you might not see a guy staggered for 12 complete rounds, but somebody's getting hurt in the in the Jacobs Golovkin fight for sure.
True. Now, do you want to move on to the next segment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what are we excited to see from the top guys in boxing in 2017? Now, you put out Lomo, Rigo, Crawford, and Charlo. Is there any other names you want us to talk about, JP?
Curtsies, which
Ooh,
we haven't seen him since. Um, Now the guy who just fought Richard Comey, what was that little guy's name?
Denis Shafikov.
Shavikov. I want to see him and Comey maybe in a rematch just outside of a damn Hooters bar. You know what I mean? Let's get these guys some kind of ring size so they can box a little bit. But that was an awesome fight. I thought that fight was potentially a fight of the year that never got any mention. But
Yes, I agree with
I'm
that.
also excited to see Spence take a step up because I said his validation fight, in my estimation, was the Algieri fight. I said if we see this guy steamroll Chris Algieri like he's done all these other guys, I'm gonna give him the legit label, and he steamrolled Chris Algieri. But I'm also interested to see what Manny Pacquiao does now. A lot of people have kind of thrown in the towel on Manny, but I, for one, still think he has a lot left in the tank, man. And people aren't talking about him; they're writing him off. But I think this guy will give. I think he'll beat Danny for sure. And Thurman, I don't know. That'll be interesting. There's some interesting things that are going on in there. But I'm interested to see Pacquiao as well in 2017.
Um, Now you mentioned uh Shafikov, and I don't know if you saw the Rancis Bartholomew fight on on PBC. I forget what network. Did you ever see that fight?
I didn't.
It's on YouTube. I'm pretty sure like PBC put it out the full fight in HD. So check that out because he almost beat Rancis Bartholomew as well. So I think Shafikov is the real deal. I would love to see actually Shafikov versus Robert Easter Jr. Both guys beat Richard Comey in close fights. I think Comey is due kind of for a tune-up. He just lost two really close fights. If he is set on being the road dog that goes around and just fighting everyone in their home place, then go fight like a Luke Campbell in the UK. That's a winnable fight against a guy that I believe is undefeated. So that'll be interesting. I think Comey, Shafikov, and just basically anyone in the lightweight division is gonna have a big year. Jorge Linares. We have Mikey Garcia versus Zlatican. Anthony Corolla is in the division. Terry Flanagan. Felix Verdejo. So I think that division's just littered with good names. So I think naturally we're gonna get good fights from that. You also mentioned in the chat that we had before the show, not necessarily now, though I was away doing something while you were talking. Sorry about that. But Lomachenko, what big name do you want Lomachenko to face? Is Orlando Salido exciting to you? Because it's not exciting to me. But I was wondering what you thought.
I'd take the Salido fight early this year, and then I wouldn't mind a step up. I'd take
In
the
weight class,
Salido fight, and that'd be it.
a step up in weight. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I like the if he wants to go to 140, or
135.
that'd be 135.
Yeah.
But I think a step up, and then he has Easter there. That'd be awesome. You know what I mean? And
Ooh. Ooh.
yeah, that's crazy, right?
I'm
So
getting goosebumps, man.
take the Salido. Yeah, we'll take the Salido because that'll be awesome, and we'll get to see how much he's improved since the last fight, and we'll go up to 135, and we got Easter there, and I'll pay pay-per-view money for that.
I agree with JP on that too. I do believe that at this point that Lomachenko's due a tune-up himself, and I think there's no better way for him to get the tune-up than to take the rematch with Salido, get revenge on the person who handed him his first loss, and show just how much of an improved fighter he's become since then.
Now,
And looking at 135 too, ooh man, the people he could fight there, just like you, Matt, goosebumps.
because think about like a Dennis Shafikov fight or a Richard Comey fight versus Lomachenko. Like those guys excite me. Let alone a Mikey Garcia, a Bartholomew, Jorge Linares, a Terry Flanagan, Anthony Corolla, a Zlatican. Like there's tons of names at 135, and there's already tons of names at 130. So like Lomachenko has plenty of big names in my opinion, plenty of top 10 guys that we will respect and we're gonna get hyped on. So I think guys like Loma, who has already shown a tendency to want to take the big fights. Bob Arum has already shown a tendency to put him in big fights. So I think he's probably the easiest person to not be worried about for 2017. But then it's funny because you put in your text, actually, JP, Lomo and then Rigo. And we have Loma, who is probably the guy that we expect the most out of because he's shown us the most so far in his career. And then we have a guy like Rigo, who has the most potential, who has shown us dog shit since the Nonito Donaire win. So what does Guillermo Rigondeaux need to do to excite you guys?
I just like to see Rigo in some fights, man. I mean, I think he's, and I don't know that he's gotten old yet because we have seen a decline in performance. We aren't seeing the same guy who fought Nonito. We're seeing a different guy, and his work, his volume wasn't high then, and it's getting lower and lower as we go along. So I'm hoping he's kind of in the same boat as Golovkin in that sense, where these guys are already up into their early to mid 30s. The big fights got to happen like now, or you're going to start pressing Father Time, and we never know how short his temper can be. So I want to see Rigo take some, just go ahead. If it takes the catch weight, if he can meet Lomo somewhere there. Now, I don't see Lomo coming down, but I think Rigo has the potential to go up a bit, more so than Lomo coming down.
Yes. Santiago,
Yeah.
hold on. Before you say something, let me just quickly interject because the Guillermo Rigondeaux fight on the undercard of Miguel Cotto versus James Kirkland, he is fighting Moises Flores, I believe. And right now, Moses Flores is ranked number 6 at super bantamweight on the TBV rankings. So he is taking a top 6 guy, according to us. So does that count? Does that deserve some credit, Santiago?
No, man, we need names now.
Yeah, no, I'm with JP too. Like personally, I would just love to see Rigo get some fights because really he's been a victim of promotional and managerial issues. I mean, after the Nonito Donaire win, the sky was the limit for him, but then all that thing just ceased and then went straight down for him. Lack of long inactivity periods. When he did come back, he's basically fighting guys that we've never even heard of with like really weird names like Dryan Francisco or some shit like that. And he is in his 30s now, like
He's
Gennady
37, I
Golovkin.
believe.
He needs to have those big career fights, and otherwise, right now he's basically just fighting for a paycheck.
Now, so what counts as a big name? Does he have to move up a weight class and fight like a Carl Frampton, a Leo Santa Cruz, like an Abner Mares, the Oscar Valdez's of the world? Or can he fight a Jesse Magdaleno, who just beat Nonito Donaire on the card of Manny Pacquiao? Like or Diego De La Hoya. Like that guy's not really ranked, but he's a big name because of his last name. Like what does Nonito Donaire? I mean, not Nonito Donaire. What does Guillermo Rigondeaux need to do? Like, what are the big names that he needs to face in your mind?
Hey, go ahead, Santiago. I'm gonna go on hold for a second.
Thanks. All right. So yeah, nah. Honestly, at this point, really, if he can't get any of the name fighters at 122 pounds, where he's been fighting for most of his career right now,
But who are
I
those name
honestly,
fighters? Because like Mosin
right
Flores
now,
is ranked number 6, but he's not a name fighter. So is it Jesse Magdaleno? Is it Jonathan Guzman? Like, is that
yeah,
it?
yeah, Jesse Magdaleno or Jonathan Guzman, and honestly, if he can't make either of those fights, then really he should just follow suit with Santa Cruz, Maris, and go up to 126. It's only going to be the first time he's ever gone up in weight, and try to get a fight there, which I hope would be a little bit easier, given that people are going to have to start asking themselves, how does Rigo do at 126, versus them thinking, oh, is this boogeyman from 122? Stay the hell away from him.
Now, because of Rigondeaux's promotional ties to Rock Nation, there's almost no way that he gets tied up with Al Haymon guys, just because of the hatred between Beyonce and Jay-Z and Al Haymon. So I don't see Rigondeaux being able to get fights against Carl Frampton, Alir Santa Cruz, Gary Russell Jr., Abner Mares, Lee Selby, Jesus Saliar, and I believe that's it. Because all those guys are Al Haymon guys, and that's a lot of guys in the top 10, right? So like, the only guys he
Yeah, it
really face
is.
is Oscar Valdez, really, or Joseph Diaz. But even then, I don't think Golden Boy gives up Joseph Diaz, and I don't think Top Rank gives up Oscar Valdez to Guillermo Rigondeaux at this point, because that's a high risk, a low reward fight. I think a Frampton
Dude, I just,
might take that fight, but there's that promotional issue.
dude, I just want to say, Santa Cruz looks like a fucking 10th grader in real life. You remember when we seen him at the Galen Center?
So
That
small.
fucking kid looks like he's like 15 years old.
I look older than him.
Absolutely. And I'm like, I believe Rigondeaux will like dog Jojo Diaz. I am not sold on Diaz.
Oh,
I've actually seen Diaz. I've seen him lose before at the L.A. Coliseum and get nothing but home cooking. And ever since then, I've been down on him. And he looked reasonably sharp in his last fight, but he wasn't fighting anybody. And I'm
exactly.
not sold on Diaz at all.
No, I think Diaz, while he is technically sound, just does not seem like a good fighter. He doesn't pass the eye test to me for whatever reason. While I'm looking at it, I'm just like, this guy gets beat at the top level every time. I think, and I think Guillermo Rigondeaux is the top level. I mean, just skill wise.
Easily,
I honestly
easily.
think
Go,
I
JP.
think Frampton he would dog Rigo actually
I
because
totally agree.
Rigo's
I totally agree.
actually flat-footed. He's just like he has that Mayweather like accuracy with his punches.
He's like
The
a perfect
punches are
version
low
of Broner.
volume, but they rarely miss the spot. But he's flat-footed, man. He's not on his toes. He's not the quote-unquote slick black fighter or whatever. He might look the part, but he's not exactly that necessarily.
I think the term JP was looking for, that slick Cuban fighter.
There it is.
Yeah, you don't be race baiting, JP. Come on.
Yeah, you know my reputation.
Now, you have Terrence Crawford next on the list that I have written down here. And I think Terrence Crawford is another peculiar case. Not in the same exact way as a Guillermo Rigondeaux, but just a case study of a guy that has limited options within his stable. And the promotional ties seem to maybe be an issue. And JP, I saw that message, so don't worry about it. And looking at his division with Terrence Crawford, we have Julius Ndongo, who is still a nobody, but he scored a big win against another nobody. We have Antonio Orozco, but he just passed out during weight cut, and he was scheduled to fight last week. So I think he's probably going to move up to 147. We have guys like Felix Diaz Jr., who keeps bouncing back and up between 147 and 140. We got Sergey Lepinets, who just scored a big win. Adrian Broner's still in the division, but promotional ties again. Ruslan Provodnikov now switched promoters, so that's an issue. I just don't see a lot for Terrence Crawford at 140. So I think when it comes to what will excite me personally for him, I think him going to 147 or him having a big catchweight bout or something with Manny Pacquiao will excite me. And other than that, nothing really else excites me for Terrence Crawford, unfortunately.
Yeah, no,
I'm excited.
What was that, JP?
Oh, I'm excited. The possibilities are endless. I don't think we see Pacquiao until Arum feels there's no gas left in the tank. And at this point, I still think Pacquiao can get that fight with Garcia. He can possibly pull Mayweather out of retirement. So there's still some $1 million pay-per-views out there for Pacquiao if he keeps going. As far as I don't see a lot for Crawford, especially in that in the top ranked stable. It's not much there for him. He's gonna have to do something, man. He's probably gonna have to take that Pacquiao fight sooner than later. I think we might see that in 2017, actually. But I don't want to cash out Pacquiao yet. I still think there's some greatness left in that guy. But I think Terrence will be a little too long, a little too young, and have those reflexes.
Hold on one second. Now, if you still see greatness in Pacquiao, who does he beat then if he doesn't beat a Terrence Crawford? I mean, Terrence Crawford doesn't have the size or power that guys like Kell Brook or Sean Porter or Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman have. And to me, those are the guys that Pacquiao would need to beat to show that he still has like glory or greatness still. Beating a Jesse Vargas doesn't do it to me. Beating a Tim Bradley, sort of, but we already knew that he was the right style to beat Tim Bradley. So I don't know. I just don't see any avenue for Pacquiao that doesn't result in a very high risk fight.
I personally see Pacquiao beating Danny Garcia with kind of relative ease. I think Danny's too flat-footed and his reflexes aren't quick enough to pick up. I think he hurts him. He drops him for sure, and Danny has that Cotto-like Puerto Rican skin per se, and Pacquiao he'll bruise him up really bad. So I think he could pick Danny off. Danny's a good pick for him. So you could pick a few. I think he beats Porter. I think he hurts Porter. I think he drops Porter a couple of times. Because we've seen Porter be susceptible to a glancing blow, and that's how Pacquiao's a glancing type puncher. It's not, he doesn't hurt guys and have you staggering everywhere. He just drops you, he'll drop you quick. So I think he can get Porter in the Dannys of the world.
I'll put it this way: I definitely disagree with that. But Santiago, you are the guy to override the tie. The pseudo tie between me and JP. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm of the opinion that at this point, there really is no one else left at 140 for Terrence Crawford to fight. I mean, Ricky Burns won the WBA title, but it's like, do we really want to see that fight again? We already know what happens. That's done with. So really, Crawford should move up to 147. Take on some of the names there that are willing to get in the ring with him. And in regards to the whole Pacquiao and the remaining greatness of him, I agree with JP. Like, I do think there's still a little bit of greatness in Pacquiao. The only thing that's not there anymore, to me at least, is the dynamism. That's no longer there. To me, in the Vargas fight, he looked more like your standard, great fighter. He didn't look like that dynamic Filipino fighter that came up and was still there for like a few years. And I agree that I believe he, you know, beats Danny Garcia because Danny Garcia has not looked like the fighter that beat Matisse in his last couple fights. He's looked like a guy who's struggled with the likes of Mauricio Herrera and Lamont Peterson. And in the Lamont Peterson fight too, Lamont Peterson gave away the first 6 rounds, and Garcia still struggled.
I think
So it's like,
I think Garcia is the type of guy that fights to the level of his opposition. That's my personal opinion about him.
yeah. So in
But
a
again, I
Pacquiao
could be wrong.
fight, I see Pacquiao basically, I guess you could say, imposing himself on him, controlling the fight, and winning probably a clear cut decision.
Now, I think I'm probably going to disagree with most of you guys on Manny Pacquiao and Danny Garcia and Sean Porter, but we can move on. We can move to somebody that I know Santiago was very happy to hear JP talk about because it was not on the list, but I know Santiago loves this guy. Curtsy. Now, I may let you two go on about this guy for a second, because I feel like you guys are excited to talk about him. So, JP, you go first, then Santiago.
So why haven't we seen him since his last fight?
Oh, you got me, dude. Like, you saw what Kurtzidze did against Antoine Douglas, right?
Absolutely.
It was, in the time that I've been watching boxing, both past and present, I have never seen such discrepancies in age, height, and reach. I mean, the stats alone made you think right off the bat, this is going to be an easy fight for Antoine Douglas. And what do we get instead? Like, literally, tell the viewers what we got instead.
We got an all-out like war. Well, I guess you can't call it a war because Curtsey's just really put it on him, but in an impressive fashion, in the sense of a guy that I just felt like this dude will go to hell and back. You're gonna have to knock him out, and that's scary when you're fighting a guy that you're not willing to take that 12 rounds with him. The only way out is to knock him out. And that's what Kirsty's is. And I think that's why we haven't seen him in the ring since, because nobody wants that, man. Now, there's clear cut advantages. Like in the first round, I think Douglas had a lot of good moments. He's able to show the jab. I think the first couple of rounds because of sheer size difference. And he's a guy that you're going to be able to get the jab off. You're going to be able to move on him. His whole thing is he has to get in close, and he's kind of like a Joe Frazier, or he patterns himself after Mike Tyson.
Like how he
So
rolls
I
and then
am
comes
so
on the
excited to
inside.
see that
Yeah.
guy. Yeah, man,
Not
I want to see him against some good fighters.
Yeah, you and me both. I mean, he is ranked number one in the WBO. He's trying to get a fight with Billy Joe Saunders, and like you said, he does patent himself after Mike Tyson. He's got that peekaboo style defense to him. He clearly knows how to use his short stature to his advantage, because when he was fighting Douglas, he made being 6 feet tall not a good thing for Douglas.
Now, hold on. You briefly mentioned why you haven't seen him back in the ring. I know that him and his team, Lou DiBella, have been really pushing for the Billy Joe Saunders fight because he was the mandatory, at least now Canelo has jumped over him. But that was the original plan. They were trying to fight Billy Joe Saunders, and that's kind of fallen through. So I don't know what's next for him. I know that Lou DiBella is trying to get him a fight ASAP. But what fight in the division would excite you? Because I have our rankings up right now. So we have Billy Joe Saunders. I don't think he's gonna get that fight. We got David Lemieux, Willie Monroe Jr., Chris Eubank, Ryota Murata, Curtis Stevens, Akavov, Hassan Nadam just scored a big knockout. Like what names would excite you?
I like Lemieux. I like Stevens.
I like the Stevens matchup. I think that's a not a too big of a step up. Because maybe David Lemieux will give him a lot of trouble. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. Like, I think the Lemieux and Stevens fight are interesting, and if you were to take a fight with Hassan and Dom, it would actually be a rematch because Dom
That's right,
actually
huh?
won the first time those two fought each other.
I wouldn't mind seeing that rematch.
No, I wouldn't either. It's an
No.
interesting thing, you know. I would love to see if Kertite has improved, you know, with this win over Antoine Douglas, you know. But really, I just want to see him again, you know, even if it's on Showbox, because you know I like this guy. You know, this guy seems even at 35 seems to have you know some potential to do something in his career right now.
I agree, and
But
he's he's a guy that's
I'll
over.
say this though, man. Let me say this quickly, dude.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's on that Lance Armstrong though, because his fucking oxygen fills had to be crazy that fight. How many punches did he throw before he got Douglas out of there? Because I haven't seen that type of output in some time.
I have no idea what the punch stats are, but I agree with you that it was for. But then again, he's a small guy for the weight class, so he's not cutting that much weight. Like
Nah,
he's only
he's
five
very
five.
stocky. 5'4". He weighed 160 pounds, the limit against Douglas, who weighed only
Gotta hold.
158.
What was that, JP? JP? Did JP fall off?
It doesn't show that he's fallen off.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe he just has it on mute. Anyways, I tend to agree that I think a lot of the top guys are gonna dodge him right now, because there's no upside in him. There's just purely no upside in anyone taking that matchup. But I think that he is a limited fighter. I think his stature, his literal stature, does hurt him in this division. I think there's taller guys that hit just as hard, or if not harder. So I'm not completely sold on him yet. I think he has a little bit of that Eastern European hype train behind him, that we see with a lot of guys coming out there right now. What do you think
Is,
about that?
is it is it fair to say for you, right? Since he has lost to Indom, and we've seen how good Indom has been doing lately, if he beats him, he kind of changes your opinion of him.
Yes, I would. Just because Nadam's also a good boxer. Like, if you beat somebody that's bigger, taller than you, not the greatest knockout artist, but somebody that's could outbox you, and he already did. If you beat him, then yeah, that shows me that you can contend more with this division, right?
Now, do you want to know what the official scores were for that fight?
I have box rec up right here, but I assume you already have it up. What is it?
The official scores were 117, 111, 115, 114, and 115, 114,
Yeah.
all in favor of Hassan and Dom.
Where's that fight at?
The Paris des Sports Porte de Versailles, Paris, France.
I'm not gonna say
Mm,
home cooking, but
Hey, but that says a lot
mm.
though because two of the judges gave it 115, 114 to Endam. Only one judge had it a wide margin.
it doesn't matter if the guy won in the end. Like I'm just saying, like it doesn't matter. I don't know.
That's a
I
close fight, man.
it is, and I'll be honest. I don't think I've seen the fight. Uh, I don't think I have. I don't know if any of you have. Maybe you have, Santiago.
No, I haven't. I've been looking for it too.
Uh, Santiago, come back to us. You sound like you're messing up with the mic. Uh, now Jamal Charlo, in my opinion, the better Charlo than Jamel, had a honorable mention for Fighter of the Year. I think an honorable mention for KO of the Year, against Julian Williams, J Rock, and he also beat Austin Trout, and I think very highly of Austin Trout. What does he need to do to impress UJP this coming up year?
Now his it seems like his opportunities are the people that are possible for him to fight seem to be limited. And so if I don't know how long he can stay at 54. He seems to be bursting at the seams. But at 160, we all know what 160 is about. And until we figure out what the hell class Canelo fights in, there's just Triple G. And I don't know. I don't know if we feed him to the lion this soon. There's still a lot of money to be made business wise. So, and then at 154, if you're not going to fight the brother or Lara, then it's Boo Boo. And then he tried to act like he doesn't even know who he is. So I don't know. It just seems like he doesn't have that many options for him.
Santiago?
And I agree with JP. I mean, he seems to have a pretty close bond with. The brothers seem to have a pretty close bond with Lara too. So I don't see them fighting each other at all. And Dimitri, hello.
They're not going to fight Laura.
Yeah, they're never gonna fight each other. And honestly, at this point, it does seem like the only thing he can do is move up. And right now, obviously the man of the division is Triple G. But I don't know. I mean, how do you guys feel about him? Fighting guys like David Lemieux, Curtis Stevens, or hell, maybe somehow getting the fight with Billy Joe Saunders.
I'll put it this way: I think Jamal Charlo is one of the most impressive fighters I've seen in the past year, and I think he beats pretty much everyone at 154, in my opinion. The only guy that gives him trouble is Andrade, and that's because of the power factor. I think Laura gives him trouble just because of a points factor, that Laura could score enough points within rounds and maybe get 7 rounds on a judge's scorecard. But I just see Charlo being able to counter him. I see Charlo being able to hurt him because Charlo is massive for that weight class. I don't know how he cuts down to 154 because Canelo Alvarez is a lot smaller than Jamal Charlo. And everyone gives fucking Canelo Alvarez shit for not moving up because he's a super middleweight or a light heavyweight. Nah, Jamal Charlo is a big motherfucker because I've seen both of them in person next to me. And let me just tell you, okay? So I want to see him move up. I know he's pretty much flirted with that. I know that he has talked about recently that if he doesn't get guys like a Miguel Cotto or a big name, quote, within 154, then he's going to move up. And I honestly would like to see that. I would like to see him versus David Lemieux. I would like to see him versus a William Monroe Jr. or a Chris Eubank Jr. or a Billy Joe Saunders or Daniel Jacobs or Gennady Golovkin. I think those are intriguing fights. And if he's not going to fight his brother and he's not going to fight Laura, and if he's not going to fight Andrade, then what's the point? Just move up. That's my opinion of it.
I I I agree with you, Matt. I mean, I'm into Charlo Lemieux. I don't know how much Stevens intrigues me. He's like, one of those people I label as a football player, or it's just like I'm in a box now, and because I'm strong and I can fight a bit. And so I don't know how good I ever really think Stevens is after about 2.5 rounds. I think just about everyone beats him after 2 rounds, maybe 4 tops. But there's a few fights there, I suppose. But nothing that's going to get me like, the juices going. It'll be good hardcore fan fights. But I think this guy, with the knockout of Williams here recently, if I'm his promoting team, I'm going to start really pushing him now. I think here in these days in boxing aren't like they used to be. It seems like promoters would seize the momentum better back in the day. Or maybe I could be romanticizing the past, being a bit of an older guy.
No, you're right. I think you're 100% right about that.
It's like Canelo right now.
Hold on, think about this for a second. The amount of boos that Charlo got after he did not shake J-Rock's hand could have easily been capitalized. And, I'm not going to give him credit, really, but can you imagine a guy like Don King at the post-fight press conference if he was if he was Charlo's promoter, and then you have Andrade coming on talking shit? Can you imagine just how, like, a promoter that knows how to promote a prize fight would do in that situation? Even guys like Richard Schaefer is not a good promoter. He is a good organizer. He is good at organizing events, but he's not good at promoting a bout, a prize fight. Nobody is anymore. Bob Arum isn't anymore because he's too fucking old. Oscar De La Hoya sucks ass because nobody likes him. Bernard Hopkins is shit because he can't even speak English, basically. So I tend to agree with you that we do not have guys that know how to promote big bouts anymore. So I don't think that I don't think. I think they have dropped the ball on Charlo, and they could easily capitalize and have made him the bad guy. Because like we have talked about before, JP, being the bad guy is not a quote-unquote bad thing. If you sell more tickets, you sell more pay-per-views, and you get more money at the end of the day.
Yeah, imagine how that would have translated if they made the Chris Eubanks fight.
Oh my! Can you imagine the press conference between a Charlo that embraces that bad boy image and a Chris Eubank Jr.?
But he never did embrace it, man.
I know
He just
that's what I'm
kind of.
saying. You know, like I'm agreeing with you that like a smart promoter would have took him aside before that post-fight press conference, or a smart manager, or a smart advisor, a la Al Heyman. I don't know where the fuck you are. You know, you would step him aside. And go, look, if you want to maximize your earnings here, you take those boos and you embrace every fucking one of them. And you go out there in that press conference and you start dropping F-bombs. You do whatever you need to do to sell your next fight and to sell you as must-see TV. Because you don't need to necessarily sell you, because we're boxing. We aren't at the NBA. We aren't football. We're not about professionalism. We're about getting the most hits on YouTube, getting the most hits on Twitter and such. You know, we're about maximizing exposure and pop culture. You know, like we're a different entity than those mainstream sports, so we need to act like it. And unfortunately, no one in boxing has that mentality.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, man, I think these guys have started to hire business advisors and shit
Yep.
of this nature over the past decade, and they've become more career oriented, whereas they're considered the slow money instead of the stardom. I think the last guy I like to cite that was taking the gradual progression was Fernando Vargas, and the progression kind of led to him to Trinidad, and that kind of ended his career in certain sense. And I think since then they stopped letting these young guys just take those leaps and bounds from bigger fight to bigger fight to bigger fight. But if you do get over that hump, you not only become the people's champ, you become endeared for years. And that's why even a guy like Fernando, who was never really able to cross that hump, he's still endeared by many. And to me, he's the last guy who was doing that shit. And like Mayweather did it too, to a large degree. Just every fight, just a better guy, a better guy, a better guy. And then we started taking some side steps towards the back half of his career here and there. But even on the backside here, it was. I thought the Victor Ortiz fight was a hell of a fucking risky fight at the time, me personally, but people shit on it now. But back then, Victor Ortiz was the highest KO ratio, a giant 147 guy in the moment. But in boxing retrospect, it's not 2020, it's 5-5. I always say that. But yeah, so guys aren't taking the progressions, man, and that's why I'm so pissed at Canelo, because this sidestep, okay, we did the con with you. We even did fucking James Kirkland with you. But fuck, now I got to do Chavez with you. The last thing I seen of Chavez was cats at the Home Depot Center throwing beers and shit at his ass. I don't even want to see the dude, especially against a fighter I feel that has the pedigree of Canelo. Canelo should take Gennady in March or on Cinco de Mayo and win, lose, or draw. Now, only thing that can happen that'll hurt Canelo or is if he gets like a flash knockout, if Gennady just knocks him out. Other than that, if that fight is a war, the cachet goes up and people will be dying for the next one. He should do it, man, but this fucking lateral shit and the slow money they're willing to get these days rather than like the gradual steps every time, I hate it.
And it's funny because you bring up Mayweather, and I think he's like a perfect case study of a person that was like he was Pretty Boy Floyd. He was a guy that him and his managing team, his PR team behind him in the early days, wanted to be the next Sugar Ray Leonard, and he never sold that way. And then he became Money Mayweather, called out Oscar De La Hoya, got that fight, and the rest is history, right? And unfortunately, you've written about this, JP, with TBV, about how black fighters need to be the bad guy, have that character, that persona to sell in boxing, unfortunately. But that is just the reality, Even though we may talk about how that's ridiculous and how that shouldn't be the way it is, but that is the way it is. And I think whoever is behind all these black fighters nowadays need to realize that there is more to prize fighting than just skill, than just that O on your record. Floyd Mayweather wasn't a star because of the O. That helped, obviously, and he used that as a selling item, but that wasn't why he became a star. He became a star because he made you not like him. He made you want to watch that pay-per-view to see him knock the fuck out. Or because he embraced that the quote-unquote hip-hop community, that culture, in a sense, that it brought in the younger viewers more, that nobody else really has brought in since. You look on demographic breakdowns for fights, it's people 35 and up watching boxing usually. People 18 to 35 don't watch boxing nowadays. They watch MMA,
A few things there. It's again, the retrospect being 5-5. So to add to the black fighter and the villain role, we forget with our retrospect that Adrian Broner I think he would be the biggest pay-per-view star in boxing if not for what happened with Marcos Maidana. If Adrian Broner had beat Marcos Maidana, the next fight was for sure pay-per-view. That was for sure. And it's just, and what Mayweather was able to do, what Adrian Broner's been able to do. Adrian Broner rolls out the numbers every time he comes on TV. It's the polarizing effect. You got the people who associate themselves with his type of persona, who love him and who are going to stay because it's kind of a rebel against the societal norms and like for acceptance to be this type of person. And then you get the people who hate that type of person and want nothing more for somebody to punch them in the mouth. And so Mayweather bought both worlds every time. No one else does that. Everybody's just kind of mired in their fan base and the people who like them, or maybe it's just a big event. But if you can be the athlete, whether it could be any sport, where you get emotion from people, whether it's love or mostly hate pays more than love, to be honest with you. But if you can get that hate side to pay, man, you winning. Guaranteed.
And you bring up Adrian Broner. I just want to say that, in my opinion, the loss to Marcos Maidana isn't what stopped his selling potential. It was his lack of determination, and it was so evident. The lack of will to even train. People see that. That's why Chavez Jr., in my opinion, isn't a huge star. We always talk about Chavez Jr. because of the name thing, but I think the vast majority of even casual fans know that motherfucker is lazy. I think
absolutely agreed. Basically, Chavez Jr. and Adrian Broner are two peas in a pod.
And Adrian Broner is known to be lazy.
Here's the thing.
Go on, JP. Go.
Here's where I disagree, because we don't care about Mayweather without the O. Okay, the O is why the O is why the hate is there, and it allows him to talk the shit. So once we see Mayweather lose, it's like, you bitch, you lost, good, we're done. I mean, you're not as important anymore because the hate is gone now. The hate is relieved. So with Broner, there was somebody poked a hole in the bag there and let some of the steam out because we've seen him get pumped from behind from Madonna. And you've seen him get carried out the ring and couldn't talk and speak like a man and be a man and take his interview. So you got off all your jokes right there. It wasn't bottled up, so you didn't need to come back as invested in your hate the next time.
All right.
So the winning when you're doing this thing is very important because a lot of times with this type fighter, you don't got the knockout either.
Right.
So if you don't got the knockout, you got to have the shit talk and the invincibility, the lure of invincibility.
Okay, quickly, my argument against that would be that I think there is a majority of people that think Floyd Mayweather lost the first Jose Luis Castillo fight, and there is a vocal minority who think that the first Marcos Maidana fight should have went to Marcos Maidana. Can we disagree on that fact?
Mm-hmm.
No,
I agree with you.
Floyd Mayweather immediately. So let me take a step back. If, let's say, in a hypothetical world that those people are right, and that Floyd Mayweather lost the first Jose Luis Castillo fight, and he lost the first Marcos Maidana fight. He instantly rematched both guys right afterwards and beat them handedly. I think we all know that. And if you look at the
They're
stats,
they're the only two people to be rematched by Mayweather in
true.
Mayweather's entire career
And,
too.
and Mayweather, after those fights, still fought big guys. You know, like after the two Jose Luis Castillo fights, he fought Victorino Sosa, Philip Maydew, and DeMarcos Corley in 3 back-to-back fights. And those are high-level guys back then. And then after the Marcos Maidana fight, in the rematch, he fought Manny Pacquiao. So just in a hypothetical world, if he even lost those 2 fights, so let's say he's 47-2, that's still a Hall of Fame record. He's still the best guy in his generation, period, and he's still the major money star, in my opinion. Am I wrong?
No, I'd personally
Santiago?
agree with you, Matt.
What do you think, JP?
I just think the O is the
I think
see
hold
it's
on.
you can't talk the shit.
Hold on. I think the O's a factor. Obviously, I'm not saying it's not a factor, but I don't think it's the number one factor for his stardom. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think let me see. So I think that the lure to Mayweather is okay to have the polarizing effect. So I think it doesn't have more to do with him being still the number one guy of the generation. It would have more to do with him being the highest paid athlete all time. I think the O had more to do with that part of what he's considered as now, rather than what he would be considered in the boxing verse. He would still be the guy he is, going right back beating those guys. He would. I question over his career with the losses would he have generated as much money,
Okay.
because the interest, those pay per views, those inflated, crazy pay per view numbers that we don't even get close to these days, I believe that O had to do a lot with those.
Uh, it's the thing. Like, obviously, like we will never know. Like, we can argue this till we're blue in the face and the sun comes up, but it's just like we will never know. We have no data that can show either way. I think we both
Right.
have aspects to our argument that are credible, that have value to them, and it's one of those things we will never know. And unfortunately, with the way his career went, everyone thinks that O means everything now. That is just a factor that has resulted this from his career. Whether or not that O meant anything for his career does not matter because it had an effect. That effect is real. Whether the cause had any true value to it doesn't matter, right?
Absolutely, I agree. And we got a generation of fighters who want to live like Mayweather and look like Mayweather, but they don't want to work like Mayweather. They don't want to take those fights like Mayweather. They don't want to do none of that, the work that it took to be Mayweather. They just want to wake up one day and be him. And that's not how you get there, man. And that's what that I think I guess I dubbed the curse of Heyman. Like, we'll never see the potential Adrian Broner could possibly be, because he became a millionaire before he, I think, half filled his potential cup as a boxer. And for certain guys, you can't do that. I mean, I think Mayweather honed his skills at top rank, where, he wasn't getting paid those millions of dollars. And I think the thirst was what kept him, hungry and developing a work ethic. Whereas Adrian Broner, like he always would tell you, was a millionaire by the time he was 22 or whatever it was. And, you know,
Uh,
and I think that's kind of where his hunger went.
no, I completely agree. And Santiago, do you have any more thoughts on this?
No, I mean at the end of the day, Chavez Jr. and Adrian Broner are case studies of guys who have the potential and the skill set to be great fighters, but because they lack that desire and work ethic, really they're not being the fighters we believe they can be.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. And it's funny because the next topic we're going to get to, I think, uh, correlates and juxtapose very easily our with our talk about Floyd Mayweather's rematches with his close fights. Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev 2, the rematch. I don't know if that's what's being dubbed, but it's probably gonna be dubbed something stupid. Is up in the air, and we really don't know what's going to happen with it. I know you wanted us to give a status update, JP, but there's really nothing to say. I know people think that there's actual credibility to Andre Ward retiring. I think that's kind of ridiculous. But I do think that you see Ward taking a side of Mayweather's example of being that really hard to deal with fighter just out of pride and ego, but he forgot how easily Floyd Mayweather went into these instant rematches with these close fights. You know, if Floyd Mayweather knew that there was some public perception that he lost, he went in there automatically and right afterwards and said, I'll fight this guy again, no problem. Andre Ward didn't say that, and I think that's the big disconnect. You know, because you can have a close fight. You can have a fight that's controversial, that some people even say is a robbery. But as long as you say, I'm going to fight that guy right afterwards, everyone sort of forgets about it because they're just ready for the resolution of this. But now we don't know what's going to happen. There is a rematch clause. I assume there is a time window for it to expire. Most contracts have that. I don't know what that time limit is. It's probably at least a year, in my opinion, from what my knowledge is of contracts. But what do you guys think about the holdup of this fight happening? JP, you can go first.
I just think Andre would be doing a complete disservice to himself for not going right back into the rematch. Now's the time for him to be a stand-up guy. You know, the rumor about him, what everybody kind of the sentiment people have kind of thought about him over the last couple of years is that he's not a stand-up guy. He kind of plays hardball in negotiations. His whole fallout with Goosen. And so now's the time to just show us that you are that guy. You won a controversial decision where guys, fans of Andre's would kind of stand on it and kind of give him every benefit of the doubt to win that fight. That's kind of my conclusion on it. That for Andre to get that W, you kind of had to give him every benefit of the doubt, close rounds and all. But now's the time for him to step up to the plate and be a real legend, be a real generational guy, to where we can be like, hats off. He did step up. He stepped up to the plate and took the fight, but the time calls for him to do it again. And I think if he does that, we'll all be happy. But if he doesn't, man, I'm at the checkout stand, I think.
Santiago?
All right. So, as Matt already knows, I've actually been of the opinion that instead of taking the rematch with Kovalev, he should consider trying to set up a fight between himself and Adonis Stevenson, get him out of the picture because I don't see him ever fighting Kovalev, and I feel that the Ward Stevenson match is a winnable fight for Ward. Then take the rematch so that you can have yourself a fight for the undisputed light heavyweight championship of the world. I do agree that Ward does need to take the rematch because I was of the initial opinion that Kovalev won handedly. When I saw the fight again, it was a much closer fight, but I still had Kovalev winning. It was a very controversial fight, and if he doesn't take the fight, then honestly, he does himself a great disservice, in my opinion.
Now, it's funny because I think ultimately the fight's going to happen within the first quarter of the new year. I think it's not going to end up being a big deal in the long run. But I like that everyone's upset about it because that shows that we still want the best fights. You know, like the boxing community was upset that Daniel Jacobs and Triple G wasn't happening on December 10th, that there was a holdup because we thought that fight wasn't going to get made. I think that's just a good sign within the boxing community that we still want the best fights out there. You know, because at the end of the day, we still have people that want to see Chavez Jr. versus Canelo. Like, we still have a section of fans that think that is a good fight, right? But we still have I think, a larger section of fans that want to see the best fight the best. And that, to me, matters. Maybe more than what's happening right now between Ward and Kovalev. Because ultimately, like I said, I think the fight's going to happen probably around April or May. Now, do any further thoughts on this, or do we want to move on to the last topic?
Not much else that I can say regarding what I've already been saying beforehand. What about you, JP?
Not much else, man. I'm all for that Adonis fight. I do like watching Adonis fight. I want to see him fight one of these guys. You got three really interesting guys at the top of the light heavyweight game division, and yeah, I want to see. We've seen Ward Kovalev mix it up. Let's get Adonis in there and see what he can do. No one knows how old he is, so let's see what he can do. I wouldn't mind Ward Adonis and then come back to unify the belt. That'd be great. But if not that, it has to be Kovalev, and I think the fight will be big this time, and I'd be interested.
Yeah, and it's sad because no matter what happens, like the casuals don't care about this division right now. Like, like we care, the hardcores care. 165,000 pay-per-view buys shows that only the hardcores bought it. So only the hardcores care about this division, these two guys, and what's going to happen, and that's okay. It's okay that it's just the hardcores caring. But I think we have to realize that Ward and Kovalev aren't as big as compared to guys like Canelo or Anthony Joshua nowadays, and that's just the name of the game, unfortunately. Now, we have Deontay Wilder fighting, I forget his first name, but I know it's Wardzik, and he fought Alexander Povetkin a couple years back and lost via third-round knockout. So you posed the question of, like, what we wanted to see from these guys, JP. You posed the question of, like, what can Wilder do? What are the best fights available for him in 2017? And obviously the winner of Anthony Joshua Vladimir Klitschko is a massive fight. It's the biggest fight in the division. But Luis Ortiz is the mandatory for the winner of that bout. So I think we're going to see the winner of Joshua or Klitschko face Ortiz. Maybe a tune-up in between that. So I think those guys are pretty much wrapped up. Those guys will not be available for 2017 due to just the nature of boxing. Now, who are the guys left? And it's not a lot. You have Alexander Povetkin, and who knows what he's going to get in terms of a PED suspension. You got guys like Puvlev. You got guys like Joseph Parker. You have Bermain Stavern again. David Hay, maybe. Derek Chisora is suspended. Maybe a Dylan White fight. Maybe a Hughie Fury fight because Tyson's out. I don't know what is the clear option for Deontay Wilder, but I was wondering what you were thinking, JP, about what he should do next after this next tune-up.
It has to be Klitschko or AJ. I don't want to see any more Dylan Whites or Chisoras or, it's Vlad or AJ. Either one loses. I take either. I'd actually take Povetkin, but I think Povetkin cycling. I think that's obvious at this point.
What about Joseph Parker? What about Joseph Parker? He's the WBO heavyweight champion. It'll be unifying a belt for two belts.
I take Parker. I'm interested in seeing Parker.
Okay.
I like Parker as a fighter.
Santiago?
Yeah, no. I mean, I actually like Ortiz, and so, I would be interested to see the winner of Joshua Klitschko, face off against Luis Ortiz, and if not him, Joseph Parker. I think both fights, the winner can win. I think the more difficult fight would be the Ortiz fight, in my opinion, but I still see them either guy beating him.
What about Deontay Wilder?
Hey, has anybody's stock dropped more all while winning than Luis Ortiz?
The answer is no, other than maybe Danny Garcia. It's either like him or Danny Garcia, because the David Allen fight was horrendous. Oh my fucking god! And then the Malik Scott fight was even worse. The Malik Scott fight easily was the worst fight of the year. Easily the worst fight of the year, right?
Yeah, and it's a shame too because he got a lot of momentum when he beat Brian Jennings.
Awesome
The
fight.
guy that went 12 rounds with Klitschko, and it was like he had that momentum, and then all of a sudden, he gets these Malik Scotts and Tony Thompson fights, and it's like, okay,
They're some of the ugliest fights ever seen.
Ever.
hands down, hands
But
down.
the thing is, I still think he could probably knock out like a Klitschko or a Joshua or a Parker. Like Ortiz has monster power. I think
Oh,
he's just old as
it
shit, right? Like that's what it is. Like he's a 50-year-old that's pretending to be like 38, right?
You know, and the thing about Ortiz too is that as someone who comes from the Cuban school of boxing, he actually does have the footwork. If you remember him like briefly bouncing on his toes against Brian Jennings.
Yes.
So like if he needs to be mobile, he can be mobile, you know, in my opinion. And he can show different facets of his game if he were to get the fight between Klitschko or Joshua.
Yeah, man. I don't,
I still favor Joshua, Klitschko, and Wilder versus everyone else in the division. I think those three guys, and you add like a Tyson Fury, who may be back in May or April. I don't know. He's in training now, so who knows? I mean, Tyson Fury is just one of those guys that's just gonna throw a monkey wrench in the whole division. Because you know it's gonna be like Joshua beating Klitschko, and then Joshua beating Ortiz, and then Joshua's gonna be negotiating with Wilder, and then Tyson Fury's gonna come out of nowhere and fight one of them
I'll,
instead. You know that's gonna happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it goes the way you're saying it goes, he probably just comes out of nowhere and says, you know, I'm gonna
Exactly.
fight Joseph Parker while you know Joshua and Wilder fight each other.
Now, if he
You know,
does come out of nowhere, what superhero costume does he wear this time? Spider-Man? Superman? You know, like I can't believe this motherfucker actually wore a Batman suit and had a person wear a Joker costume come in and wrestle him to the ground and then say, "This is what I'm gonna do to you, Klitschko." You know, like we have literally like the biggest imbecile and monkey wrench in the entire sport of boxing in this division. So I have no idea who's gonna fight who after the first half of this year coming up. I think they all want to fight each other, but it's just a question of I think promoters because you have guys like Eddie Hearn in the mix, Al Heyman. Yeah, who knows with these people? You know, we can never predict what these guys are going to do.
and when have
dude, and
promotional affiliate. Go ahead, JP.
I just want to say, man, I like Fury. I think he's entertaining. He brings some personality to the division.
Yes.
But I've never seen a more fucking self-loathing son of a bitch who wants you to feel so sorry for him being a fucking gypsy. What is he making, like, documentaries? Look how hard it is being a gypsy. Like, who fucking thinks about gypsies at all?
Hey, I will say this though, the majority of the gypsy population is in the UK and Ireland. They aren't in anywhere else in the world now. They've migrated there in a sense. So, like, we have no gypsies here in America, and especially on the West Coast. Like, we have none. So, we may not understand it, but I do know that there is such thing
Yeah.
as like gypsy like racism in the UK. Like that is a real thing. Like I asked my UK correspondent about that, and he was like, "No, it's real. Like there's people that absolutely think like gypsies are like lesser human beings than other people. You know, like that's not non-existent. Is it the same?
Dude,
Is it the same thing as like what African Americans have suffered? Hell no. But I mean, like it's Tyson Fury. Like he's a fucking cokehead. Who knows? I mean, come on. He could have been high when he gave that interview.
I'm like, what the fuck is all this gypsy shit about? And by the way, what is a gypsy? So I got curious. I Googled it. It's a Romanian person. But
Yes.
I'm like, I don't really get all this fucking. Maybe I'm out the loop again. You said it's more of a thing in the UK. But I'm like, stop it, fucking Tyson. Nobody gives a shit about gypsies, let alone anyone else. Nobody, like, wakes up like, you know what? I fucking hate gypsies.
Obviously, we got off topic, but if those that are
Yeah.
listening, here is a history factoid that maybe you don't know, but the Gypsies were the other group targeted by Nazi Germany in Europe during that time. The only place that Nazi Germany didn't have control over in Europe at that time was the UK. So during the concentration camps and such, Most of the gypsy population was systematically killed along with Jews, mentally challenged people, homosexuals. So that's why you don't see a lot of gypsies anywhere else in the world except for the UK, because gypsies are more of a European thing because they're from Romanian descent. Plus, they're just a different culture in a sense. But there was mass genocide of gypsies in the 20th century. So that's why we don't see them.
Shout out to all the gypsies.
Yeah, you motherfuckers suffered a lot, so we got you. But you need to rein in your boy Tyson Fury, because Tyson Fury is crazy, and he just needs to be boxing, He's the lineal champ of heavyweight. Like, we cannot take that away from him. Just like we didn't take away from Chad Dawson. We don't take away from Canelo at middleweight, even though we want to. These guys are the lineal champ. They're the guy that beat the guy. There's something to that. So I really do hope that Tyson Fury gets his shit together, regardless of if he's a gypsy and regardless of what you, the listeners, may think about that.
So, who got the knockout of the year? Was it the Wilder Spilka fight?
So, all right, so that was our last topic, but JP wants to keep going, and I say fuck it. I have nothing else to do. So, my list, I'm going to bring it up right now. I have it Hassan Adam versus Alfonso Blanco. I thought that knockout was just insane. And plus, it was Hassan Adam, a guy that doesn't knock out people, so I think that alone makes it exciting. I favored Alfonso Blanco in that fight. I picked him in that bout. He was undefeated. He was a top 15 middleweight, and Hassan Adam looked like trash after the Olympics. And he goes in there, one punch knocks out this guy in the first round, and Blanco's body is twitching on the canvas. To me, that means a little bit more than Spilka Wilder. But again, it's close. I think you can make an argument for either or. I know Spilka Wilder is in my top 5, and I just think that knockout of the year is a hard one this year. It is. Because you even have like Canelo Alvarez versus Amir Khan. That could be a knockout of the year. I know it is in a lot of places.
Yeah, knockout of the year is tough this year. I guess we'll have to see what the boxing aficionado Dan Raphael says, because what Dan Raphael says is the standard rule.
He said my pick. He said Blanco versus Nadam, I'm pretty sure. And then
hold a sec here, guys. Hold up.
All right. And then you have like Julius Indongo versus Edward Trinovsky. Yeah, like that.
Which I personally thought was, the choice for me,
And then you have like Vasily Lomachenko versus Rocky Martinez. I thought that was a fantastic knockout. Especially somebody that went to war with Orlando Salido, a guy that beat Vasily Lomachenko. He knocked him out. Like that is impressive.
Yeah, and he did it while fighting on the inside as an outside fighter. He just basically spun Rocky Martinez around the entire fight.
Yeah. JP, you back?
I'm back.
We did do a show on our preliminary boxing awards for 2016. You can definitely catch that on the replay in either any of our platforms, iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, Patreon. Please support us on Patreon. But we're getting out of here. Any final thoughts, guys, on any of the topics we've covered? JP?
No, man, just excited for 2017. I want to see Errol Spence take a step up and fight someone good. I want to see Wilder get in that mix and fight someone good. I want to see Frampton step up, fight someone in the next division. I want to see guys start to take challenges, man. I'm tired of this, we're adhering to our career. I know that's selfish of me. I want you all to die and, take the hard fights.
Santiago, any final thoughts?
Not much. I share some of the same sentiments as JP. I am looking forward to 2017. 2017 seems to be going off to a good start so far. We've got a lot of good fights to look forward to in January and in March. And honestly, hopefully it continues to translate that throughout the rest of the year,
Yeah. Now, everyone out there listening, hit that like and share button. Thank you for listening to another edition of Mixed Combat Radio. I will have another episode out later detailing a breakdown and preview of UFC 207 and breaking down Chris Cyborg's drug test failure and what that means, whether it's a valid substance. You know how I feel about that. And plus, I'm also going to have another show tomorrow morning with my UK correspondent, Alex Huckerby, better known as Bet on Boxing 911 or the Boxing Junkie on Twitter. And I will also do another show breaking down New Year's Eve event in Japan. We got Inoue fighting. We have a ton of guys. We have Jezreel Corrales versus Yukiyama 2. We just have a ton of fights coming up. And so I can't wait to be with you guys later. It's going to be a rough night for me. But you guys have a great one. Peace.